How's it going, guys? I'm going to show you two of the coolest and most important apps that you can have on your phone if you own a BMW. I have an M2, but this will work with just about any BMW out there. It is, in my opinion, an absolute must-have. Now, the two apps I'm talking about are BimmerCode and BimmerLink. So the way I'm going to kind of break this video down is, first I'm going to go over BimmerLink, show you all the cool things that you could do with that app. Then I'm going to go into BimmerCode, show you all the kind of cool things you could do with that app, which is a lot of kind of coding in the car. And then I'm going to do some coding in the car, just a few basic things that I wanted to code in this car. Now, the absolute most important thing for this to be able to work, you need a Bluetooth adapter for the OBD port. I have one from VPeak. I'll have a link in the description to one of these. There are a lot of different brands that you could use. Personally, I think VPeak is the absolute best one, in my opinion. I've had this exact adapter for like 3 years now. The location for the port is going to be on the driver's side, underneath the footwell. So we're going to plug this in. All right, that's plugged in and good to go. So let's start screen sharing. Here we have our two apps, BimmerCode and BimmerLink. So the one we're gonna start with is BimmerLink. So mine opens up right to my dashboard. So first let's go back to kind of the main screen. So what BimmerLink essentially does is it allows you to read the car. You could read all your temperatures, you could read all your sensors. If you have a check engine light, you can diagnose what the check engine light is, all the errors in the car, the codes, all that stuff you could do in this app. You could check the battery, and there's just a lot of cool things that you could do here. Now, I know there are a lot of apps out there that aren't necessarily specific to BMW that'll do similar things, like clear check engine lights, all that kind of stuff, read temperatures. But this one, because it's so specific to BMW, I think it's an absolute fantastic investment. I'm gonna start off with just permanent errors. So info memory, error memory, permanent errors. I'm just gonna quickly go into here, and I'll end up skipping a lot of these loading screens. All right, so you're gonna get a screen like this. Just hit continue, make sure everything is checked off, and it's gonna read your car for any permanent errors. So this is what you're gonna basically use if you have any check engine lights, and it'll tell you what all those check engine lights are. I currently don't have one, so I don't think I'm gonna have any errors pop up. All right, so mine is loaded. As you can see, no errors on literally anything in this car as far as like hard check engine lights. But basically, this is the majority of all the ECUs in the car. So you have the front end module, the DME, which is kind of the motor and the battery, stuff like that. And this is where you can also clear errors. Let's get out of here. Service reset. If you have a service in your car that you did yourself, you can reset it. The coolest thing, in my opinion, about BimmerLink with some of these cars is sensor values. So if you go edit, add. So these are all the different sensors that you can have in your car on display. Engine speed, for example. Obviously you have your tachometer, you could read your RPMs just right on your dash. If you want to know the exact RPMs, you can read that. Intake air temperature. That's kind of good in the summertime. If you're driving on a really hot day, you can kind of see what the temperature is of the air going into your engine. Lot of really cool stuff in here. The majority of the stuff is pretty useless unless you're actually trying to diagnose a problem. But what you can do, the coolest thing, is you could set up what's called the dashboard. And essentially what this does is it gives you 6 to 8 specific values that you want to see pretty much at all times. So what I have on mine, you can see I have coolant temperature, oil temperature, transmission temperature, really useful, battery voltage, also useful, PSI, that's kind of a cool one to have. If I rev the engine a little bit, you'll see the PSI for boost goes up a little bit. So all this data is in real time, which is really cool. So on a cold day, you can see your temperatures kind of rising as you kind of start the car from a cold start. On a hot day, you can kind of monitor your temperatures. Now if you go to the 12-volt battery, this is one that I used back when I was having issues with my battery. If you want to know all about that, I'll put a link somewhere over here so you can look at all that stuff, how I spent loads of money on a problem that really wasn't that big of a problem. Battery type, state of charge, mileage since last battery replacement, and then the previous one before that, which this one isn't actually accurate just because I tested a reset as part of something I did to try to fix it. But you can add a new battery. So with BMWs, when you replace the battery, you have to code the battery to the car. So this is one app that allows you to do that. Really useful. Air memory, air and info memory. I'm not really going to go into those, but essentially it's the same thing with permanent errors, except it's the kind of smaller errors that don't throw a check engine light. Really cool app. Highly recommend. I believe on the App Store for iOS it's $40, and I want to say it's 40 or 50 on the Android store, Google Play Store, I don't know, whatever it's called for Android people. Now I know it's a bit of a steep price, but I highly recommend it. It's a one-time purchase. Once you have the app, you pretty much have it for life, and it works on all BMWs. Like I said, you will need an adapter. That is 100% something you need, so those go for about $30. I have a link for one of those in my description for the exact one that I use. Great adapter, and again, I have used it on all my BMWs for the last 3 years, this one adapter, and I've used it in my daily driver, my Subaru Impreza. So the adapter itself is not limited to BMWs. Now, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you are, please give it a like. Do consider subscribing if you want to see more videos in the future. Definitely appreciated. Now, let's move on to the more fun app of the two, BimmerCode. So here we go. We're going to open up BimmerCode now. So we're going to hit connect, VPeak, continue. So here you select what car you have. Make sure you select the correct car. Now, while this loads up, I'm going to kind of briefly go over what the app does. So essentially, BimmerCode allows you to code things in the car. So there's different things in the system, in the computer, on the iDrive, in kind of the way the car does things that you can change with this app. Now, the beautiful thing about this app is everything that it does, because it's so tailored and specific to BMW, is everything it does is within the system of what already exists in the car, if that makes sense. So you're not adding extra code, you're really just changing settings in the computer of the car for things that are turned on, turned off, things that you can adjust the intensity of, different things like that. You're just adjusting. You're not messing with the car, if that's one way to kind of look at it. You're not going to break anything by doing this. Nonetheless, just make sure you double check everything and kind of give everything a quick read before you start coding, so you have an idea of what you are doing. So this is basically the screen that comes up. Depending on what version of the app you have, it might look a little different. Front end module, head unit, seats, the rear module. So all this stuff seems overwhelming, but what's great about this app is over time they've made it a lot easier to read what everything does. So let's jump right into front end module. That's where the majority of stuff is going to be. Front end module, head unit, instrument cluster, and the rear module. That's where the majority of stuff is going to be. So let's go into the front end module. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, which should probably be self-explanatory, is your car has to be on in order to do any of this stuff. It's good to have the car itself turned on with the engine if you're doing a lot of coding and a lot of stuff in the car, just to keep the battery from draining. Here are some of the things that we have that popped up. So let's start kind of going into some of these functions and kind of what things you can code. Auto start stop, so basically whenever your car comes to a stop, like at a stoplight, what you'll find with some cars is it'll always default back to turning on. So every time you start the car, you have to manually turn off the auto start stop feature. So like right here, set the auto start stop function to off by default when the car is started. So not active. For me, it stays on whatever the last setting is, so I don't have to touch it. Brake force display, I'm gonna do a separate video coding this feature in. Really cool feature. So what you'll see is if you brake really hard, your rear taillights will actually flash. Or rather, they won't flash, but it's a feature you could turn on so that they kind of flash and then they go full solid. So it's a feature that is turned on in Europe and it's coded in the car, but it's not active by default in the US. There's some legalities with flashing lights. By default, this is turned off, but it is something I'm going to be turning on just because the extra safety, and it is really cool. Now, if you do a conversion from your car to LED lights, you would change all that stuff in here. Mirrors, this one I am actually going to be coding in the car right now, so I'm going to kind of give you an example of how that works. Fold and unfold mirrors automatically. So the mirrors are folded automatically when the car is locked with the remote control or comfort access, and unfolded when the car is unlocked. With most BMWs, you have a little button here that you could press to fold in and unfold the side mirrors. So if you park on a street, something like that, and you want to fold them in, you always have to press the button in order to do that. So we're going to hit active on this one. So that is going to be something that we're going to turn on. So whenever we lock the car, they're going to fold automatically. Huge disclaimer with this one, and I'm going to actually make a separate video about it. But if you have a car that is driven in the winter and you get a lot of snow, a lot of ice, do not code that feature into your car. Reason being is if you get a lot of rain and it freezes overnight and you have a thick shell of ice around your car and your mirrors are folded in, as soon as you go to unlock it, those little motors in your mirrors are going to be struggling against all that ice and you could burn out and destroy your motors. Do not use it in the winter. It's really not worth it. But for now, because it's kind of the end of winter, I'm going to turn it on for the springtime. Unfold mirrors with convenient opening, that's active. So convenient opening is when you use the key when you hold down the buttons, so you can roll down the windows or roll the windows up, and same with the sunroof if you have a sunroof. Really cool feature. We're going to turn that on. Fold mirrors with convenient closing, turn that on to active. Side markers, this is another one I am going to code out. So side markers, those are, in other words, the parking lights. So the little orange lights at the front of your car, when your car is running, you can actually turn those off. So really good if you want to take pictures of your car and you don't want that orange kind of clouding everything. Really good feature to kind of be able to turn on and off. A lot of really cool things that you can change in here. So for now, I'm going to just be changing those things. So now that we pretty much selected what we want to do, we're going to go up the top here, hit code, important note. Basically, don't interrupt this feature, just let it code, let it do its thing, start coding. Now your car might do some weird things as it does this. All your lights might kind of flash once or twice. You'll have a little error light come on, front end collision. You're gonna have 1 or 2 warnings pop up. So right there, just had traction control light come on. Restarting ECU, clearing errors, coding completed successfully. And now there's nothing anymore on my dash. That is done. So now let's show you those folding mirrors. All right, so if we get out of the car, as you can see, our mirrors are open. If we lock it, give it a moment, and boom, your mirrors are folded in on both sides. So really cool feature. Now we unlock it, and the mirrors fold right back out. So now let's turn the car on, and I'm going to show you that those parking lamps are now turned off as well. So now if you look, you have the halos on and the main lamps, but these little orange side markers right here are no longer off. Now they will still work with your blinker, so if you turn on your blinker, you see they do still work just fine. So right there you can see some of the really cool features that you can code with BimmerCode. Now with all these, you do have expert mode. So expert mode I'm not going to get into, but you can go a lot more nitty-gritty into different things that you're coding. For all intents and purposes, you really don't have to go in there unless you're doing something very, very specific. And that's usually when you know what you're doing or you're following a tutorial on how to do it. But in general, stay away from expert mode. You really don't need it. For the most part, everything that you see is enough to do what you want to do. And I think that was all that I coded in there. So yeah, I'm not going to go into every single little thing you can code because the video would just be ridiculously long. But I just wanted to show you some of the really cool things that you could do with BimmerCode and with BimmerLink. So both of these apps each are, I believe, $40. So they are a bit heavy of an investment. But again, it's something that you buy once and you have it for life. Now again, you will need an adapter. I recommend, once again, VPeak, fantastic adapter. I've used this exact one for like 3 years now. Definitely recommend this. Once again, I will have a link in the description to this exact one that I use and purchased. So really, really cool apps. Highly recommend you guys get them if you own any BMW. They're kind of must-haves in my opinion. If you found this video helpful, leave it a like, subscribe if you want to see more videos, and leave me a comment with some of the cool things that you've coded. But for now, yeah, that's going to be it for this video. So thank you so much for watching. Until next time.